If you're a longtime Bucks fan, then you might have experienced the misery of the 1976-77 expansion Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who lost a league record 26 games in a row. Author Jason Vuic chronicles that journey, and he joins us to discuss his new book along with those years. Good morning, Jason. How are you?
Good morning. I'm great.
Well, first I'm curious. You know, this is a topic that Bucks fans want to forget. What in the world made you relive it for a book?
Well, I grew up a Bucks fan. I live in Texas now, but I grew up about 100 miles south in Punta Gorda, and I'm a child of the 80s. I'm a child of the team that came after Doug Williams left, the curse of Doug Williams, the 14 losing seasons in a row. And those were my Bucks, and I have a lot of nostalgia for Bucko Bruce and Hugh Culverhouse and Leroy Selman. And I wanted to write something about those lean years that made us who we are, that made us Buccaneer fans.
You know, I'm curious, and I was able to go through the book, and you know, it's not a downer book, though. You're able to write it in a way that kind of is sometimes tongue-in-cheek, sometimes having a little fun. How were you able to do that? Talk about your writing style to tackle these kind of topics.
Well, you know, when something is bad, my first book was on the Yugo car, right? And it's easy to be a bully and to point your finger at someone and laugh, you know? But the Bucks were more than that. Through all these years, the Buccaneers started out with low attendance as an expansion team in '76, and even though they lost, attendance went up. People in the Bay Area embraced the losing team that turned into a winner by 1979. So it was, you know, I looked for the happier stories, the heartwarming stories. I mean, you know, you could focus on the bad things. But this brought pro football to Tampa, and it created a sense of identity in Tampa Bay, even when they lost, and that's such a positive.
Well, you know, talking about the way that you don't want to poke fun, I'm going to use that because that's exactly what a lot of people in the country were doing. I mean, you share stories of Johnny Carson and kind of talk about how it was the running joke of society or pop culture at that time.
Yeah, and I think that's the same thing with my car book, is that there are losers every year. The Browns are bad, but they're not a national joke, you know, or an icon for losing. And the Bucks were at first a joke on Johnny Carson every night. You know, when there were 12 channels, you remember that. There was 11 channels in U. Johnny Carson had 6-7 million viewers a night, and he would tell Buccaneers jokes. And everyone would talk about them the next day, and other comedians, and it got into movies and films, and George Carlin make jokes about the Bucks, Bill Cosby, you know, people like Red Fox. And so, you know, that's what happened with the Bucks. You know, but at the same time, they became lovable losers, like the Cubs.
Yeah.
That eventually it wasn't so funny that you were kicking a dog when he was down. They became underdogs, and Americans really did cheer when the Bucks finally won.
I was going to say, let's talk about that time. You read my mind as we're wrapping up here. Talk about that first victory, I mean, against the Saints. Saints get rid of their coach as a reason. I mean, and then the goalpost came down on their last win. I mean, kind of talk about the positive. We got to end on a good note
absolutely.
Here.
The Bucks lost 26 games in a row into 1977. It's the all-time record. They get to New Orleans, and Dewey Selman told me that we had to physically carry the ball into the end zone ourselves, the defense. If we were going to win, we had to do it ourselves. And they scored 3 defensive touchdowns to beat the Saints. And when they arrived in Tampa, the players were partying on the plane, and I heard from various people that they were standing on the seats dancing to disco music as the plane landed in Tampa, the only plane they've ever been on with people standing up. And there were 8,000 fans at Tampa International Airport who then reconvened at One Buck Place for a party into the wee hours. And it was just such a wonderful moment for Tampa Bay. And apart from the Super Bowl, it was one of the greatest moments in Bucks history. It was a positive. I wish I'd been there. I was a little boy then, but
and then the goalpost came down the next home game, right? Because they won again, correct?
They won their second game, and they were just high on life, or maybe drunk on a lot of beer in the sun. And they tore down the goalpost. A 2-in-26 team, fans of a 2-in-26 team, tore down the goalpost at Tampa Stadium.
They found the silver lining. Well, again, this book, I got to say, is definitely not a negative one. It kind of talks about some negative things, but it's a lot of fun. So thanks for your time coming today. It's been a lot of fun to talk with you as well.